ERAM missile is a missile specifically designed, extended range attack munition, I think it is, specifically designed by the U.S. Air Force in 2023, 2024 for Ukraine. It's supposed to be an accurate system that can be delivered by the aircraft available to the Ukrainians that provide up to 700 kilometers worth of strike distance into Russian territory to level the playing field. The thing about it is, it was conceived in 2023, 2024, but it would take 2 years to bring it up to production. Gosh, I don't know. That's 2025. So they haven't even begun serial production of this munition yet. When they do, the maximum sustained production capacity for ERAMs is 1,000 missiles a year. Now, we are talking 6 weeks from now. If they begin serial production today, we're going to be able to deliver, 10, 15 missiles to Ukraine. And here's the kicker. They can't use them because the United States has to approve the targets. So Trump knows that if the Ukrainians use an ERAM against Russia, the Russians will know that we targeted it. Therefore, we have become directly involved in this conflict. We are a direct participant of this conflict, and that's the end of any peace treaty. So this is just stupidity on the part of the president, who will never allow these weapons to be used because he can't allow these weapons to be used. He knows what will happen. It was a 50% chance of nuclear war last year. I would imagine the odds even gone up given the stakes at play here. So this is just political posturing by the dumbest man in the world. And I'm sitting here trying to work with this guy to bring an end to this conflict, to have better relations, to bring about, nuclear arms control. And he's saying the right things about the potential of this. But then he does something like this. Thank God Vladimir Putin is a very smart man and a very patient man, and he's not going to take the bait. This is just not going to happen. This is something that is not going to happen because it can't happen. We don't have the ability to follow through on this. And even if we were to provide them with these weapons, they can't use them in the way that they would desire to use them because it would get us involved in a war that would very likely end nuclear.
You just heard Scott Ritter, former U.S. Marine Corps intelligence officer, UN weapons inspector, and one of the few voices in the American security establishment willing to speak truth, expose a shocking reality. The ERAM missile, the so-called game changer Trump says he'll give to Ukraine, hasn't even entered production. And even if it did, Ukraine couldn't use it without U.S. approval. And if they did, the U.S. would be directly involved in the war, and Russia would know it. Let's unpack what Ritter said and why this isn't just military incompetence. It's nuclear brinkmanship. Ritter starts with a simple fact. The ERAM, extended range attack munition, was conceived in 2023 to 2024 as a way to level the playing field for Ukraine. It's supposed to be a precision-guided missile, air-launched, capable of striking up to 700 kilometers into Russian territory. But here's the truth. It doesn't exist, not in any meaningful way. Ritter explains, it would take 2 years to bring it into serial production. And we're only in 2025. So when Trump says, I'll give Ukraine ERAMs to strike deep inside Russia, he's not announcing a policy. He's political posturing. Because even if production started today, Ukraine would get maybe 10 or 15 missiles in 6 weeks. That's not a war-winning weapon. That's a propaganda stunt. But the bigger issue isn't production. It's accountability. Ritter drops the bombshell. The United States has to approve the targets. That means the Pentagon picks where it goes. The CIA verifies the coordinates. The White House signs off. So if an ERAM hits a Russian base, Russia knows the U.S. targeted it. And that changes everything, because then the U.S. is no longer a supporter. It's a direct participant in the war. And that's not just a diplomatic shift. It's a strategic red line. Because once the U.S. is seen as directly attacking Russia, the risk of nuclear escalation skyrockets. And Ritter doesn't hold back. It was a 50% chance of nuclear war last year. I imagine the odds have gone up. That's not fear-mongering. That's realism. And Trump knows it. Ritter calls it what it is. Political posturing by the dumbest man in the world. Harsh. Yes. Accurate? Also yes. Because Trump isn't trying to win the war. He's trying to win the election. So he makes big promises. I'll arm Ukraine with long-range missiles. But he knows the missiles aren't ready. The U.S. would be exposed if used. Any such strike could trigger a nuclear response. So he says it and expects no one to actually hold him to it. But the world isn't fooled, especially not Russia. And Ritter makes a key point. Thank God Vladimir Putin is a very smart man and a very patient man, and he's not going to take the bait. That's not praise. That's relief. Because if Putin reacted to every U.S. provocation, we'd already be at war. Ritter's final point is the most important. This is just not going to happen because it can't happen. And he's right. The U.S. doesn't have the capacity to produce ERMs at scale. The maximum output? 1,000 missiles per year, if production runs smoothly. But even if it did deliver them, Ukraine couldn't use them without U.S. permission. So the whole threat is a bluff. And Russia sees it. China sees it. The global South sees it. And the result? The U.S. looks weak, reckless, and unhinged. Not strong, not strategic, just desperate. Ritter's analysis reveals a deeper truth. The U.S. is no longer making rational foreign policy. It's making election-driven stunts. And that's dangerous. Because when a nuclear-armed superpower starts threatening war for domestic political gain, the entire world becomes unstable. And the saddest part? Ritter says, I'm sitting here trying to work with this guy to bring an end to this conflict, to bring about nuclear arms control. But instead of diplomacy, we get bluster. Instead of peace, we get brinkmanship. And instead of leadership, we get a man who doesn't understand the stakes. In conclusion, Scott Ritter gives us a rare and unfiltered look at the real forces shaping the Ukraine war. Not military strength, not strategy, but political theater played at the edge of nuclear war. The ERAM missile isn't a weapon. It's a lie. And Trump isn't a statesman. He's a showman. But in this game, the audience isn't just voters. It's the entire world. And if the U.S. keeps playing with fire, one day, the world won't be lucky. Stay tuned for more analysis right here on The Informed Perspective. Until next time, stay informed and think critically.
Even in the memoirs of Chancellor Angela Merkel, for one day, tried to object. And then after the first day of the Bucharest summit, Europe folded its hand, and it hasn't been independent ever since. Merkel said, okay, we'll go along with this. NATO enlargement was committed. Europe has lost its voice ever since that day. Actually, German chancellors are one more pathetic than the next. Merz is now an open warmonger, completely unpopular, plummeting popularity because the public does not want this. Parties like AfD, which are called extremist right-wing parties, are actually parties that say we don't want World War III. This is all through Europe. The so-called extreme right is not the militarist right. It's the opposite. The mainstream is the militarist faction now because it fell into line with the U.S. neocons and lost its independence. European Union leaders became vassals of the United States after 2008. Who does Ursula von der Leyen work for? Clearly the United States, not for Europe. She just exposed this again in this unbelievably ridiculous so-called trade agreement where Europe gave everything to the United States, even though Europe is a bigger region, 450 million people compared to 335 million in the United States. But Europe said, we hold no cards. We can't negotiate. We fold our hand. We give everything to the United States. And that's von der Leyen. So, all of this is to say, Glenn, that Europe lost its way. It lost its independence. It lost its clarity. And one of the things that happened, just to add, is that Europe became, in its rhetoric, partly guided by the U.S. deep state, insanely Russophobic.